This is Speak of the Devils on AZ Family Sports.
Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier TV show for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV and CBS 5.
And I'm Joe Healey with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, spring practices are in the rear view mirror, and the Sun Devil roster for 2024 appears set as there are three new additions through the transfer portal since we last joined you. The roster is now at a full 84 because, of course, they are going to have to go this year without one of the scholarship counts due to the NCAA violations. But it looks like the Sun Devils have added some very intriguing pieces.
Yeah, the school year has come to a close for Arizona State. Congratulations to all the new Sun Devil alumni, of course. And there have been some closure in a few different ways, whether it's the NCAA investigation or, as we will talk about, the search for a new athletic director. And as it pertains to this episode, wrapping up the football roster for the 2024 season because, of course, the transfer portal rules are a little different this year than in the past. So the group that ASU has set right now, you're pretty confident that's going to be the group they're going to be heading on to Frank Kush Field with come this fall.
Yeah, the opener against Wyoming is just now a few months away. But, of course, in our last episode and on our podcast, we did a deep dive into kind of where the team was post-spring practices. And one of the key areas that we identified that they need some help, they said so, during the course of the practices as well. They needed help at quarterback because Sam Levitt and Trenton Bourguet were the only scholarship guys left standing after spring. ASU made a move, and it's a guy that has made his mark in college football over the last few years, perhaps for better and perhaps, for some circles worse. Jeff Sims, who began his career with 3 years as Georgia Tech starter before moving over to Nebraska. He's now a Sun Devil. He's a guy that stands at 6'4", 220 pounds, a dual threat quarterback. But while there's been some tantalizing moments in his 4-year career, also a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, turnover issues, but he does have some athleticism that he brings to the table, a great deal of experience. For me, this acquisition is evaluated on how he fits into the program. If he's a guy that's going to really be a viable option as a starting quarterback, then I think that maybe that gives you a little trepidation. If he's someone that is going to battle for reps, battle for a depth chart position, I think that can add some value. And obviously, if it's, an emergency quarterback as well, it's someone that has starting experience. So I think there can be a way that this adds value to the program. We're just going to see how that plays out. Now, I know a lot of Sun Devil fans are probably a little shell-shocked from some of the additions last year at quarterback. And, not to throw the guy under the bus, but how Drew Pine played for ASU, a little similar kind of profile in a sense to what Sims has as far as what he brings to Tempe. So I know ASU fans are certainly hoping not to see that sort of thing again. But once again, I think this acquisition can, in the right circumstance, add some value to the team.
Yeah, I totally agree that the context is really key here because while Sam Levitt did enter or exit spring as the presumed leader in the clubhouse right there, you have Trenton Bourguet, the experienced, savvy veteran, perhaps doesn't have the wealth of physical tools that a Jeff Sims has. But, this is a guy who has a lot of experience, which does count for some stuff, and some intriguing physical traits that we've seen Kenny Dillingham get pretty creative. So maybe there's a package here or there that Sims can participate in if he ultimately doesn't get the job. But it isn't another experienced guy in that locker room. And, Joe, 2 guys were added to this roster as well that whoever it lines up at quarterback has got to be pretty happy about. Let's start off with running back Alton McCaskill coming over from Colorado, but he made his mark at Houston as the 2021 AAC Freshman of the Year, scoring, I believe, 18 touchdowns there. An exciting running back. Unfortunately, missed all of 2022 with an injury and just was kind of still working his way back. Appeared in 4 games for Colorado a season ago.
Yeah, this is like a third time's a charm type situation, I think, for ASU because the Sun Devils recruited him out of high school before he went to Houston. They recruited him as a transfer last year going from Houston to Colorado, and obviously they did that yet again and landed the guy. As you mentioned, a tremendously talented and productive running back from what he did a couple years ago, but he's missed a great deal of time due to injury. But I believe that, the coaching staff did their research on him and his health and what he'll be able to bring to the table and feel confident in that. That position, that was a surprise to me. I mean, that's like kind of one of those best available draft pick kind of things because the running back room, certainly you don't feel that it needs any further bodies because you didn't see too many departures other than George Hart from that group to the transfer portal. So it adds depth to an already deep group. We talked before he arrived as a transfer addition of how is ASU going to spread the ball around and keep all these running backs happy. Now that becomes even more of a thing, but that's a luxury that they are willing to deal with.
A very deep backfield, but they're running about 6 deep right now. And then also ASU added help at wide receiver, of course, top wide receiver for the last couple of years, Elijah Badger in the portal. And this move right here seems to indicate that he will not be coming back. Malik McClain coming over from Penn State, started his career at Florida State, where he crossed paths with one-time Seminole offensive coordinator Kenny Dillingham, 6'4", 205-pounder, a guy who's very physical, and with new wide receivers coach Hines Ward. You know that he values a guy who can block for the ground game and block downfield. And McClain seems to be a guy who fits that role, but also perhaps can be a playmaker with his size as well.
Yeah, with Badger leaving, they really had to add another wide receiver. There were a couple other options that ASU pursued that did not pan out. So McClain is on board. He was a big-time recruit when he came out of high school. He's got big size. He has 1 year to play plus a red shirt if necessary. So this very likely will be kind of a short-term rental to, try to provide some value in some capacity this year. So again, they just had to fortify that group with that somewhat shocking departure of Elijah Badger. And it's, again, a guy that Kenny Dillingham is familiar with from his days at Florida State.
And so with these 3 additions, along with the prior 2 transfer portal additions, that puts ASU at the full 84 scholarship limits that they will have for this upcoming 2024 season. A little bit maybe surprised that perhaps they did not bring in another offensive lineman, but of course offensive tackles especially are pretty hard to get, and it's a very competitive market out there to land some help in the trenches. So obviously a really good looking roster in terms of the playmakers, but we'll see how things unfold in this upcoming season. After the break, we're going to talk about the red hot Sun Devil baseball team. Winners of 12 of the last 15 will be joined by Scott Sandulli of DevilsDigest.com. Let's talk about the red hot Sun Devil baseball team with DevilsDigest.com reporter Scott Sandulli. All right, so we're looking at a team right now. The Sun Devils heading into the home stretch. They have won 12 out of the last 15. Right now, just have 3 games left on the regular season schedule: 2 against Texas Tech, 1 against UNLV, and then the Pac-12 tournament, the final Pac-12 tournament. Right now, it's probably the big question right now for Sun Devil baseball fans. What viable path do you see right now for ASU to make the postseason?
Well, viable, Pac-12 tournament championship is probably what you're looking at this rate. It's they've got the substance of wins and they're playing well at the right time. The problem is there's a lot of losses and there's some bad ones in there. You look at getting swept by Washington State, and that's really the big highlighter of this all, dropping midweeks to New Mexico, Cal State Fullerton, Utah Valley. Those are just games you can't really lose in a position that ASU is in, being you're not an SEC or ACC school and you're not going to have the greatest RPI. I mean, ASU is sitting at, I think it was 82nd in the RPI this morning. And from last year, I believe it was no team inside the top 50 missed the NCAA tournament. ASU was 54th last year at 32-23. Of course, had that late season slide where everything went AWOL. But another stat that I think kind of factors into this, it's called ELO, which measures recent play and recent form, kind of in accordance with the players you got. And in that case, ASU's in the low 40s right now because they're playing hot. A lot of guys are playing well, and no team inside the top 50 of that stat missed the field last year as well, but no team inside the top 50 of that had an RPI in the 80s, as ASU does right now. And so there's a lot of comparable resumes that you could talk about with Cal and Utah, respective Pac-12 teams. ASU swept Cal but lost 2 or 3 to Utah. Those are 2 teams that, in my opinion, are on the absolute cut line right now. And ASU is about 10, 15 spots behind those 2 schools in the RPI right now. So I think ASU is in a position where, unfortunately for them, Texas Tech has kind of slid off from the ranked team that they were for a good part of this season, and UNLV not necessarily having their best year. So they're, no matter what they do this weekend, I don't know how much it moves the needle. So what they do in Scottsdale is going to be very, very important. And they can win all 3 games this weekend and maybe make an appearance in the Pac-12 championship game, and that might be enough. We saw that from Arizona last year, where they got hot at the right time. They took out Oregon State and Stanford from the Pac-12 tournament last year, ran all the way to the championship, lost by a run. But despite not winning the season series against ASU last year, they got the nod in. a lot to do in part to they were playing fantastic towards the end of the year. That's kind of the script ASU's following right now, but it's obviously different circumstances. We'll see where it goes. My personal opinion is I think they have to win the Pac-12 tournament.
A big part of this recent stretch of winning baseball is the scorching bats of Nick McClain and Kian Vu. What has happened with those two guys to really kind of spur these incredible numbers over the last month and a half or so?
We'll start with the guy that everyone kind of expected in Nick McClain. I mean, last year he came onto the team about midway through the season, had a wrist injury that kept him out of the first half, and he came on and down ASU's stretch where they just fell off the table and missed the NCAA tournament after contending for regional host early on in the season. Nick McClain was really the bright spot of a lineup that went quiet. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but the first day that he got in, I think he was hitting number 2 in a lineup that was the best offense in the Pac-12 at the time. So it just goes to show the kind of talent he's got. And he was supposed to be probably the 3 hitter to start the year this year, but then again had another hand injury that took him out for the first month or so. And I'm not sure if he rushed back or not, but once he came back to the team, it took a while for him to get going. But once he did, oh my, Nick McClain is hitting absolutely everything in sight. I believe he was on a 5-game home run streak about a week ago, just won National Player of the Week where I think he was 15 for 23 in a 5-game stretch, which is just ridiculous. And so he's been that game wrecker in the middle of the order that Sun Devil fans had expected at the start of the season. And now the guy that nobody really saw coming was Kian Vu. And Vu was a freshman last year, kind of a fourth outfielder used in sparingly situations where you would come in for defense late in the game or come in for a pinch hit appearance to work a walk or lay a bunt down. And he is the blossoming that he has undertaken as a hitter is just unbelievable. And he wasn't even in the starting lineup to start the year. He took Nick McClain's spot with McClain injured, but was gradually forced out as McClain came back and some other guys were hitting. Brandon Compton, an outfielder, was hitting the ball really well to start the year. But Kian Vu kind of worked his way into the lineup when Bloomquist was looking for a shift towards the end of March when the team was stumbling a little. And another guy that's just hitting everything in sight. I mean, he went from a fourth outfielder to I think he was hitting 459 at his highest qualified spot, which was second in the entire country. He's since tapered off a little bit, but he's still a fantastic table setter with the bat in the 2-hole, great defense as well. And from the left-handed side, just a pure hitter. He can get you a single. He can put one in the gap. He could put one 50 feet over the wall. What he's done as a hitter this year is something no one really saw coming when he came to ASU. And it's definitely been a joy to watch. Those two bats have really been the spearheads of ASU's 12-3 run.
Sun Devil fans are passionate, perhaps none more than ASU baseball fans, and it's been a up and down few years for them. Overall, when you kind of look at top to bottom at this Sun Devil baseball program under Willie Bloomquist, how do you think those fans should feel about kind of the near-term future and trajectory of Sun Devil baseball?
If you ask me, I believe it's a bright future for a lot of things that I've discussed earlier. There's a lot of talent in the core that can be coming back in the next few years. The recruiting has shown that it's gradually picked up. Last year they brought in the number 2 transfer class in the country. This year I think it was a top 25 high school recruiting class. And so they got a lot of talent in that clubhouse. Willie Bloomquist is getting more experience as a head coach and as a manager. ASU's NIL situation hopefully continues to get a little better. And now with an administrator in place like Graham Mazzini, who really cares about this baseball program, I think those are all factors that can really play into Sun Devil baseball making a resurgence in the next few years. And that really can be highlighted or really sparked by what they can do to finish off this 2024 season.
Welcome back to Speak of the Devils. ASU is off to a fast start in the 2025 recruiting class with a group that is currently ranked number 1 among the Big 12 teams. A big part of that focus is looking local, and ASU has a pair of commitments from local standouts. Next up, you'll hear a portion of my conversation with Saguaro SaberCat star Dajon Hinton, who talks about why he chose ASU and being a hometown hero. All right, let's start off with the big question. Why was Arizona State the right place for you?
There's a lot of reasons why, but the main reason was probably had out of the whole staff, the strongest connection was obviously my former head coach, Coach Mons, but Kenny Dillingham treated me as family as well. So, and he's the head coach. So that's like, you can't ask more out of a head coach, but a good relationship.
Getting to know the program, getting to know Coach Dillingham, what was your kind of vibe and read on just the culture of the program and the things that he's trying to build here in Tempe?
He's trying to keep in-state talent here, which is good because before he was there, wasn't really looking into in-state kids. But like every time I go there, the players, they treat each other as family, and so you could easily say their culture is really family heavy.
What is it like to be heading to a university that is finally placing kind of a priority on local guys like yourself?
It's something special, and I believe in what he's doing, and we're gonna flip it around with the in-state kids and the other kids that are not in-state. So he's just building something that should have been built a long time ago, which is a great thing.
So what's in your opinion, what's your read on kind of Arizona State's reputation locally among, like other elite local guys like yourself, how that reputation has evolved since Kenny Dillingham's got here?
I mean, ever since he got there, he's been trying to build a great relationship with the top prospects. And if they're not known as the top prospects, just ballers. So he's doing his job with the in-state kids. So.
What is as you gotten to know not just the Arizona State football program, but Arizona State as a university, what kind of jumped out to you in terms of what ASU can offer you both on and off the field?
Well, I like that they have a business program because I'm more than a football player. I want to get into finance and stuff, and they have that, and just a great environment that's around. Like I live 5 minutes away, so I could just walk over and just like get a feel of the environment, and it's nothing like home.
You mentioned, of course, Jason Mons and making that reunion here with the Sun Devil program. What's it like just kind of, getting to work again with Coach Mons? And also, what makes him such a successful head football coach?
When he's a coach, he coaches more than just football. He teaches valuable life, and that's what he did at Saguaro. And I know if I go there, he's going to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. And that's all you need to be successful in life.
Now, as a local guy, how much appeal does it have to be, one of those potential hometown hero type guys, a Chase Lucas, DJ Foster, N'Keal Harry types? How appealing is that to you to have that potential to do that up and rep for your hometown?
I just needed the platform. Now I'm about to go do it.
And of course, you and Rylan Dillard Allen are just kind of two of the first guys here in the committing to in the 2025 class and kind of building that Arizona connection. Are you guys just kind of working your way and maybe can try to rally others to be kind of continue that wave? We've seen the success ASU has had with the Texas to Tempe pipeline, but are you guys going to be kind of at that forefront of kind of the Arizona Stay Home movement?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a few players. I'm trying to get Gio Richardson from Basha, Logan Powell from Brophy, Garrett Martin, my teammate, and I'm just trying to get the best of the best that I've seen. So hopefully we can get them to come over.
Now, of course, last season was difficult with the injury and just kind of coming back. How tough was that for you of just not being able to get out there and contribute and maybe put some good film out there?
It was tough because I love ball, but I had to view it as a learning lesson and more of a study to the game. Just to see if this is actually something I would want to do. And obviously it is because I stayed engaged the whole time. But my family, teammates, coaches, even the staff at the school, they helped me hold my head high. So it wasn't just me, it was a collective group effort.
Welcome back to Speak of the Devils. It has been about 6 months since ASU Athletic Director Ray Anderson departed office and leaving that role to an interim. And obviously there's been a lot of things going on in Sun Devil Athletics since then and a lot of consternation in terms of from the fan base as to why this process has taken so long, what ASU President Dr. Michael Crow will be doing with this. And it seems, Joe, that perhaps one of the worst kept secrets around Tempe is finally going to become public, and an end to the search is near.
Yeah, as we record this on Tuesday evening, some news began to shoot through social media about Graham Rossini becoming Arizona State's new athletic director. Of course, it is not yet official, again, as of this recording. But as you mentioned, kind of the worst kept secret, we've had Hode Rubino on to discuss it. It is something that has been, relatively known for quite a bit of time, that this is the direction that ASU was going to go. Of course, he's been with Sun Devil Athletics for quite some time, also spent a lot of time with the Arizona Diamondbacks. At one point, he was the director of operations for Sun Devil baseball, so some deep roots. And of course, he is an alum of Arizona State University. Put Sun Devil Athletics in a very unique position within its key administrators and head coaches, especially head coaches of some major revenue sports where you've got a lot of alumni, Arizona State alumni serving roles there. So we'll certainly go into much, much more detail about this hire in future shows, but we certainly got to touch on it now. A lot of mixed reviews from the public, which is to be expected as far as the knee-jerk reactions to this news.
Of course, on one hand, you have Graham's resume that seems to be filled with a lot of impressive elements. As you mentioned, of course, an ASU alum starts there. That kind of mirrors, with head ASU football coach Kenny Dillingham and having that tie there. And, of course, his resume with the Diamondbacks, Major League Baseball, his ability in sports business is pretty good. But also, we have seen in recent weeks that the community, the alums, the fan base, some of the boosters might have a problem with just the fact that it's an internal promotion, not the fact, or almost completely separate from the fact of who Graham is and what he brings to the table, but just the fact that it is a internal promotion and that Dr. Michael Crow did not take a look outside and maybe perhaps explore some external options is brought a lot of fan ire and some pushback, but it appears that Dr. Crow will be continuing on this path and making the move that, as we mentioned, has been long expected. And perhaps another element is, if it is an internal hire and the guy's been here the whole time, why did it take 6 months? But these are things that we'll see, how they play out, how the reception is now, if in fact Rossini is the guy. But Joe, what are your thoughts on just in terms of the internal versus external, kind of given all the turbulence that Sun Devil Athletics has seen in recent years?
I think with this, ASU fans just really need to take a step back and see the forest for the trees, because it is disheartening that no matter who the person was, no matter who it was, that since it's an internal hire, there's a certain segment of the fan base that was going to gripe about it. And there are a few different ways that you can dissect that as far as why would people be upset about that. I know that sounds like a dumb question. One thing to address is that Graham Rossini was not at Arizona State University during the time period the infractions occurred that resulted in the NCAA investigation of the football program. So I think that means something, that is not an administrator who was around for that. I think that again is a bit of a help there. And it's also, and the biggest thing for me is, it's not a guarantee that just because somebody is an internal hire that person is going to mimic and emulate everything that the predecessor did. I think a lot of times, especially for those of us who work like in corporate America, we would think, hey, if I got this leadership position, I would do things a lot different than that boss. That's a conversation a lot of folks have. So time will obviously unfold all the tales that need to be told about how this hire will prove to be. But I just certainly hope that Sun Devil fans can simply get on board with it, give it a shot. The kick in the can of, I will support ASU athletics when this happens. Little bit aggravating. You've got this new direction of the athletic department. So I say embrace it and see what comes of it. I am highly confident there are going to be some innovative and revolutionary ideas that are going to come into the forefront that Sun Devil fans will be excited about. So again, give it a shot. Don't assume just because it's somebody that was employed by Ray Anderson that this gentleman is going to be an exact carbon copy of that administrator.
So certainly a lot of things that'll be thrust on Graham's plate as he takes the job here shortly. And if you'd like to check out extended interviews with Scott Sandulli and Dajon Hinton, be sure to download our full podcast episode. Joe and I will be back with you next month on Arizona's Family Sports.